So they're saying that there's this dominant view, petroleum comes from fossilized remains. There is this new group of scientists that's challenging the dominant view, and they're saying that petroleum is actually from deep carbon deposits instead. Now, this geologist is saying that their theory, the challenge theory, is refuted by biomarkers. So biomarkers existing here, according to this geologist, means that not from deep carbon deposits. So this is kind of a multi-layered argument. Once again, we have the initial dominant view, it's from fossils. The challenging scientists saying it's not from fossils, it's from deep carbon deposits instead. Then this geologist specifically, this individual saying, because there are biomarkers, then it is not from deep carbon deposits. So these biomarkers to this geologist are incredibly important in refuting the challenge to the dominant view. So our job here, this question stem is asking us to weaken the argument of the geologist. And the geologist's argument is based upon these biomarkers. So if we learned new information in the choices that suggested that these biomarkers did not refute the challenge and go back to support the dominant view, we would be weakening the argument. So our job is to challenge the idea that the biomarkers mean what the geologist says that they mean. And the geologist is saying that these biomarkers indicate that the petroleum is coming from living organisms way back when, those fossilized remains. Very tough question. I know it's sciencey. There's a lot of layers to it. Any thoughts on this one? Super tricky, I know.
It was a weird one because when I was reading through it, my immediate thought was, oh, they are biomarkers and deep carbon deposits. So I kind of happened right off the bat, but I think the biggest thing is like placing biomarkers. If you have something that places biomarkers for some kind of living organism in deep carbon deposits, that would go against.
Yeah. So are there any choices that do that? Yeah, excellent. It is in fact D. You're absolutely correct. So if D were true, saying certain strains of bacteria thrive deep within the Earth's crust, in the present, those bacteria deep in the Earth's crust could be the source of the biomarkers, meaning that the biomarkers are not from fossils. Instead, they're from currently existing organisms, which would mean that these biomarkers do not actually support the dominant view. You're just suggesting that there are currently bacteria living there in the present moment. Well done. Tough question.
I have a quick question. What's the conclusion of this? Maybe I'm just like, for this whole stimulus or stimuli, is it because for some reason, I just am interested in hearing what it is, because I just had something a totally different main idea.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, let's think about it. There's the dominant view. There's the challenge by these scientists in line 4. Then there's what the geologist thinks. So I would say, since it's the geologist talking, it's going to be what the geologist thinks. And the geologist thinks that these biomarkers refute the challenge of the scientists. So when they say their theory is refuted by, the geologist is saying that these biomarkers refute the theory. That's the geologist's claim. So I'd say that final sentence is our conclusion. Everything else is background leading up to that. I know it's a lot to unpack. It takes time. I'm reminded of those questions where they have evidence, then sub-conclusion, then main conclusion. So the sub-conclusion serves as the conclusion for what came earlier and evidence for what comes later. That's not exactly what's happening here, but the idea of having 3 parts to unpack, I think, definitely adds to the complexity of questions.
I'm still confused about which line is the last line referred to?
Well, this is the last line of the stimulus. Yeah. Because there are biomarkers, therefore, the deep carbon deposits theory is refuted. So basically, the geologist is saying that this challenge is wrong. That's their claim. I mean, it's not as easy to identify in this stimulus because we don't have indicator words. So in future questions where there are indicators, I'll be sure to point it out for you.
Yeah, the refute is really annoying because I'm thinking so much of what was refuted before prior. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, refute is basically means the negation of this.
Yeah.
So the geologist believes the negation of this. Petroleum is not from deep carbon deposits.